Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Esteemed FaceTime with Leaders, an initiative by World Development Corporation. I'm Sandeep Balooja, anchor at World Development Corporation. FaceTime with Leaders is the platform for industry titans to share their experiences, thoughts, ideas, and best practices in order to inspire one another and future leaders. In a nutshell, we attempt to encapsulate the multi-decadal learnings acquired by these industry leaders. We also hope that by conducting these FaceTime with Leaders interviews, we can bring together a global community of eminent personalities. By bringing together such visionaries on one platform, we hope to play a part in inspiring the lives of other leaders. Great learnings from great leaders undoubtedly assist everyone by identifying, nurturing, and using the trade secrets that are proven success formulae for many. And this is what we aim to achieve with these sessions that are a gathering of industry stalwarts and a knowledge-sharing community. We have one such personage on FaceTime with Leaders with us today, Mr. Sandeep Balooja. A warm welcome on FaceTime with Leaders, Mr. Balooja.
Thank you.
Mr. Balooja is a veteran with over 44 years of experience in the general management, business strategy, human resource development and consulting, having dedicated his 36 years in the automotive industry, particularly to Anand Group, where he brought about numerous changes, namely revenue increase and relocation of business operations. At present, he is managing S&L Consultants in the capacity of managing partner and founder. So, Mr. Balooja, what are the most important qualities required for handling such a demanding and complex job role?
Yeah, so let me, so thank you very much. And let me start off with the two faces. You see, when you are looking at, say, growth within a group or within a company, you need to have people. I've always believed that 90% business is people. You can buy land, you can buy the machinery, you can get technology from overseas, but it's the people which are the most valuable asset. And I've been focusing right in my various positions as the CEO or managing director or as the executive chairman of getting the right talent of people to head, which becomes a very important factor. This apart, what you need to do is that when you're looking, since you've asked me what are the complexities of a group, say like, for example, any group which is looking at increasing its business, in our case, it used to be obviously be in the automotive. So you need to have a look in terms of what kind of company objectives in terms of short term and the long term, whether it's the revenues. And of course, as far as I was concerned, it wasn't always the revenue, it was always the bottom line, which was very important because that's what enhances the share values. So what do you do when you're looking at such kind of this thing and when you're strategizing your growth and for the group, or you're strategizing what areas to get into? Well, while I've said we focused only on the automotive, now within the automotive, there are product lines which you would need to get into. What kind of product lines are there? For that, in fact, the segments which you would like to enter, so it's the OEMs where you are a tier one supplier, you supply directly, or do you want to concentrate on exports? Or do you want to even be a big player in the aftermarket? Of course, when you're also looking at aftermarket, it depends on what product lines you would like to be. Every product which you may manufacture may not have the opportunity of being a supplier because those warranty periods of those products can go up to 10 to 12 years. Then, of course, once you have done that, you need to look at what the competitive landscape in India as well as overseas, the markets which you are targeting at, what are they about? Because that's very important, because ultimately you're going to be looking at capturing, somebody's share. But the most important part of it is that when you're looking at this, you need to strategize and look at what the technology changes which will be coming in the future. Today, as you know, as far as the automotive is concerned, you have the electric vehicles, you have the ADAS coming in, and plus also very clearly aligned with the government and what they are looking at in terms of not only the technology, this thing, and the safety part of it. For example, when I was the chairman and then later on the national vice president of Auto Components Association, which means we are talking about leading, today they're about close to $50 billion, and with exports also being a very high. Now you had to basically discuss also with the government as to what their strategies and then align primarily. So it is very important that you also align with what kind of strategies. For example, from Euro 4, we directly went to Euro 6. Now there are a lot of changes, whether it's in the exhaust systems or whether it is, there are a lot of changes which are required. Similarly, now if you look at it, the government is now looking at, and they have done, and they're giving a lot of incentives for people for availability for the green environment, that you have to have electric vehicles. Now, electric vehicles has a total different powertrain. It's basically, when you look at, say, besides, of course, all the other product lines, but the powertrain from IC engine changes to, say, for example, to electric vehicles, which is basically motors, controllers, and of course, battery. Battery, we are now looking at lithium, but there's a lot of work which is getting longer. So when you look at also what you want to get into, when as an objective, you must also look at in terms of what technologies would you 5 years later, where will the industry be, and then work this out. And to me, this used to be a very important factor, that before taking a decision, what product lines, what customers, and what kind of margins we'll be able to get. As I was telling you, benchmarking to me becomes very important, and competitive landscaping plus technology as to the various. Then the next steps come in, and this is exactly even in my current role, we are helping a lot of OEMs, on my own. So if one has set up a lot of joint ventures, which means that you bring the technology in, whether it's with the Americans or the French or the Koreans or the or the Japanese. Every culture is different, and that every technology also, some people are great in technology in certain areas, some people aren't. So idea is, how do you sort of get them to come to India and to marry? For example, when it was with Anand Group, I was with Anand Group, but when I started on my own, then there could be companies where we were looking at different things for companies where I was consulting with, I was on the board, etc. So this is where typically, yes, my last position, which was as the executive chairman and chairman of the board of Mando, which used to be about $5 billion group globally from Korea and majorly supplying to. So, idea was that and they were technologically looking at, say, 10 years later as to what kind of products they would be working with companies like Hyundai and being a Korean company. Now, those kind of this thing are very important for us to decipher as to where we want to be, what we want to be, what kind of revenues we want to achieve, what kind of bottom line. And at the end of the day, it's basically, when you look at everything, it's all about enhancing the shareholders' value. So if there's anything else, if you would like to ask, please go ahead.
Yes, so this brings us to our next question. And you have handled mergers and acquisitions when in Anand Group. So which was the most important merger you have been involved in, and why?
Yeah, so I've handled, for example, joint ventures. Some of them could have been existing, and I've just been taking over. Like, for example, I started very early in my career. I was the chief operating officer for a company called Victor, which had a joint venture with Dana Corporation in the US. So that led me to, but that was already an existing one. I think the best this thing was that during my my last assignment was as the executive chairman and chairman of the board of Mando, that was very, very interesting. And as I was telling you, the cultures are different, and so whether you deal with the Americans, the Japanese, the Koreans, even the culture difference between us and them are quite quite different. So the key becomes challenging as to, and basically when you have a joint venture, it's like a marriage. So it's all about transparency and trust and great corporate governance as we are looking at, in terms of what we are doing particularly. So here with the challenge when we had this merger, we were at, say, not making too much money, and we were at a stage where we were only primarily suppliers to, say, Hyundai being a Korean company. And the idea was to bring in new products, and not only for the Korean company, but also for the Indian companies like Tata's, Mahindras. Now, that was a very strong, if you really ask me, I mean, that was the strongest part of it. One was to reduce, the cost of imports, which we were doing from, say, overseas, from Korea, etc., and localize in India to become more profitable. When you look at as I was always keep having profitability has always been the key. You have to have result. And secondly is the cash is the king. So idea was to, when you're looking at all this, as to what new technology, what new products which we can bring in within the joint venture, and how can we increase the sale. And with all these efforts, I think the so frequent visits to Korea and working very closely with the top management, and really helped in having teams which were created over here. As I always kept telling you, people are your biggest assets, getting the right people to do this. So whether it was through localization, etc., and reducing the interest rates and bringing up your financial ratios to a very healthy level, and most importantly, to bring in new technologies to increase the business with the other customers where we were not there. And of course, Anand Group had was a tremendous challenge. And I think that was one where we grew by nearly 40% in revenues in very quick time, and were able to convert not a very happy financial this thing to a very positive, great financial this thing too, the impact which we had. And third was, which I always believe, is that good corporate governance at the board level, is the key of success. So whether you have your strong audits, points, and of course the teams to look at it, and which was very, very, very important to me in terms of when I was looking and chairing companies like this. And of course, whether I was on the boards of Haltex, which was a Swedish company, whether I was a board of advisors to companies in the UK, to also to other companies through S&L Consultants when I started, whether it was Lumax or Padmini, my message to them always used to be at the board level was the same. And, so it's all about the value enhancement in terms of what you do.
Rightly said, sir. So how have you come about founding your own startup venture?
Good question. So after I finished my tenure, which I was telling you, with the Anand Group, as the executive chairman. So when I completed this, so a lot of my friends within the automotive fraternity said, why don't you, start your own this thing, help us with the getting joint ventures, acquisitions, or whatever the key, or technical license agreements, getting new technologies into India. That was one. Second was that also, as I told you, people, and which I keep looking at it. So they were saying, we do have all these companies within the automotive had been saying that we do have these companies which are, when we are looking at hiring, we are not able to attract the best talent. So I decided that I did two collaborations. So my own venture has three aspects. One is the consulting, which I do it through S&L, which is, which is advisory to the board of this thing. So which I did for Lumax, I did for a couple of companies within the automotive, plus for companies in UK, and advising them on the right strategic growth, this thing, which is after my full time employment, which I ended as the executive chairman. And secondly was I had the second aspect of S&L Consultants was that we have a joint venture with a company of ASA, which is the seventh or the eighth largest now in India, and where we help companies in terms of joint ventures acquisition. And this is where it came from, the automotive part of it, that why don't you help us? Third was, which I have another strategic alliance with a company where we look at the strategic, filling up strategic positions, the key positions basically, in terms of getting the right fits for the organizations. So I said, all right, I mean, this is something which I could contribute, from my particular aspect, and keeps me busy, keeps my mind intellectually active. And plus, learning never stops, as I've always said. And so you keep learning from everybody you interact at every stage of your life. So it's great fun. And so that's how this started off as a journey of being there. And I'm glad that I'm able to contribute to the, to much of what my friends within the automotive group wanted me to do.
All right. So, Mr. Balooja, have you ever felt a better need for addressing governance-related issues in your field?
Absolutely. I think as I've said, that corporate governance, and whether I've chaired, say, as the chairman of the boards, or whether it was this thing, to me, corporate governance had always played a very vital. And how you need to do is, I think, the audit part of it becomes very important. Now, audit is just to find out what exactly, what a team of individuals, when they're doing your audit and all aspects of business, from accounting to stocks to this, and what are the best things. But the key here is that what I have always prophesied is that each one of the managers must be, first of all, be aware that what is corporate governance. And so we had a lot of training programs within other things. What are the statutory compliances we need to do? Third is that how do we make sure that we have a very robust planning and process control procedure, whether it could be through the SAPs of today, or whether it could be, having a great this thing. And of course, a very robust internal control, because, to make sure that the audit part of it, as a chairperson or whoever is the chairman of any this thing, that he must make sure that he and the other board directors ensure that there are proper systems which are defined in terms of making. So it's not only that, you have an audit, you have a problem, but how quickly you can fix it. And to me, I think once you have the systems and the processes in place, then you're in a very comfortable zone. So that's in fact very, very important. And corporate governance, whether if you're a listed company, and if you have to, play whether there's this thing of SEBI, that is one part of it, which is like complying with it. But the key is the total, how you're able to redefine and re-implement the key processes and the planning and everything in your company, so that you don't run into any one of these issues. And of course, it's also very important that the audit, whether it's internal or is external, should be the top priority of any board to look into. It's not that every company is perfect, and then the corrective actions have to be driven by the chairman and the board members in terms of implementing that. So that's the key. So corporate governance is a very, 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 very important aspect of running any business anywhere in the world.
Insightful, really insightful, Mr. Balooja. So how much technological dependent is your field, and what are the most significant changes you have seen in your field with technological implementations? And what changes do you see ahead with upcoming technological trends?
So like, as you know that, I mean, since I've been a veteran in the automotive, now I've seen technological changes coming in from right from years ahead. And as I was telling you, that it's very important that you keep abreast with your work very closely, even with the government, to look at what safety. So there could be technology changes in terms of bringing about from the safety perspective. For example, you would have heard about ABS in the cars and the two-wheelers, and which was never there. Now that's part of your safety system. Now that requires a different technology when it comes to the braking part of it. Similarly, when you look at Euro 4, Euro 6, the technology difference specifically relating to the exhaust systems, where you need to be monitoring the chemical composition and bringing down the nitrous oxide for the environment and not emitting gases which are dangerous to your health. Now that requires another additional technology change. So over a period of time, when you have a look at to what technology changes which have come in from safety point of view, or when you're changing from Euro 4 to Euro 5 to Euro 6, of course, in India, we jumped directly because we were behind to Euro 6. And I think the government did a great job in terms of making sure that all of us, so we used to have series of meetings. Now, going forward, I briefly mentioned about electric vehicles. And that's again, when we're looking at, you've seen our pollution levels, whether it's in Delhi or other parts of the country, which is bad. And I'm glad that the government has taken this initiative of creating. Yes, there has to be infrastructure, the charging stations, which they are working on, and plus the private this thing. So the key now here from the technology point of view is that number one is that to how we can all contribute in terms of bringing the price of the battery down, because that's one of the key this thing, creating the infrastructure. And once you bring down the price, then these cars, which are currently expensive as compared to an IC engine, will become the rule of the day. And plus, then you will have no longer emissions. So I think it's a great this thing when you're bringing it. Similarly, so this is the technology from the products part of it. Now, even when you look at even the IC engines, and within, say, the pistons and the piston rings, and how a 5-ring piston ring with a groove came down to 3-ring, why to improve fuel efficiencies, to reduce oil of it. So it started right from there, and it is still going very, 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 very strongly. Now you'll have you have ADAS, which is coming, and which is the of course in India it will probably take time because of our own traffic, but that's the new thing which everybody has been working upon. So technologies like EVs, ADAS systems, and robust new thing which is coming up in terms of all the product lines. When you look at, for example, earlier you never had LED lighting, but today now LED lighting, have become a common kind of a thing. So in every product line, there have been improvements, whether it's the coatings, for example. So the new technologies, whether in all kind of spheres, is the key. And that's where you need to make sure that you monitor and what areas which, Now, also not that. Now, if you look at the plants, for example, so whether it's, you have the industry 4.0 where the machines, that's the key thing. While in India, we still talked about, all right, we have cheap labor. But if you look at when you are implementing, say, 4.0, where machines are talking to each other, and the productivity level and the process control level in terms of is fantastic. So that's where the productivity also improves when your utilization of the machines are coming. Your operating efficiency levels per machine improves drastically, which is a key thing because you've invested, and also as now the buzzwords of artificial intelligence, which is also coming into the Internet of Things. Now, today, for example, when you look at cars, you have the options. I'm just looking at in India. Where was the internet in the cars today? Everybody and all cars which have been introduced, whether it's a small car, earlier it used to be only be in the very high-end luxury, but today every car you buy has the enter of this thing which is available as a feature. And that's what all of us are demanding today. I mean, we're looking at different. So that's the difference which is coming in, and which will keep evolving throughout. So all these factors are going to be playing a very important role, and especially in automotive technology changes plays an important role. And plus, of course, in terms of upgrading. That's about it.
Rightly said, sir. So this is little off the track question that I would like to know. Lithium-ion battery, hydrogen cars, or hybrid? What is the future of automotive industry?
Okay. Now, good question. I've written articles also on this. Now, if you look at, if you really ask this thing, hybrid is so you'll have a mix of hybrid, you'll have a mix of EV, and hydrogen is the way forward. In India, we would have hydrogen. Of course, you have a safety point of view. You got to, I mean, the storage and handling of hydrogen is very important, but that can be dealt with. So the future of this would be, you'll have the lithium, which is in the EV space. And in fact, you'll be surprised that there are even people working, which still haven't come onto the forefront, on the batteries and using different chemicals where they will be able to reduce the price. So that is one part of it, the lithium batteries and the other chemicals, this thing within the battery space. Secondly is hybrid. For example, if you take Japan, and in Japan, 20% of the vehicles which are running are all run with hybrid. Now, why hybrid? Hybrid, at least because of through the degenerating of the brake systems and all that. So automatically, you don't have to have a charger because it's charging. You start off with fuel and it sort of immediately. So you have the best choice, and that gives you a good mileage, best choice, and they have been able to master. So in India, actually, it should have been hybrids should have been the first move, which people did, and of course, which is still going on. And that would also play an important role because that has a positive impact. Then, of course, the full electric vehicle. And to curb, of course, as you know, oil is becoming a big issue globally. And from there, so hydrogen would probably come in with respect to as an alternate. So you're right. So it will be, the next gen would be evolving is going to be EV with the lithium batteries plus whatever the changes coming, the hybrids as well as the hydrogen. But a lot of companies are working on hydrogen. Some big companies have already got into a big listing of hydrogen. So you will see hydrogen also in the years to come, as like what happened with the CNG. You know, I mean, we had, of course, the CNG also as an alternative, which became by the government. So many of the buses were being all in the city were all running through CNG. So I think it's a good this thing of going step by step with all this.
Okay. So, Mr. Balooja, since you are now a corporate governance expert, what values do you bring to the table?
When you're looking at in terms of, well, if you look at, as I was sharing with you, with my earlier, and then many of my earlier statements which I made, was that as a corporate governance, which is very, very close to my heart, I think the changes and what needs to be done is to primarily focus on the processes, the controls, etc. within your organization, the systems, new systems which you need to make sure and ensure that all the statutory compliances are met. I mean, it should be from the system itself that one doesn't have to, follow up on anything. And if you do those, get this robust planning control systems and with a very strong internal audit and backed totally by, I would say it should be driven directly by the chairman himself of the board to make sure that, these, because ultimately it's the corporate governance and the this thing which also adds value to the, besides the profitability and everything, it adds value to the shareholders, values, which is very, very important. So it's the right nurturing of the complete, I would say, the ecosystem within an organization and how you run it. Once you have systems, there are absolutely no problems. I've seen it during my lifetime running companies and being the chairman, etc.
Again, very insightful. We are building the global thoughts leaders community for cross-pollination of knowledge and a community of independent directors for having a better corporate governance in the country. So what are your thoughts about these initiatives taken by Mr. Zishan Pathan, Mr. Heval Mehta, and the whole team of World Development Corporation?
No, I think it's now two things. The paradigm today within the industry is changing. People have realized that independent, gone are the days you could say, all right, you're a good friend, come onto the board. But gone are the days where if you really look at it from the company's perspective, that first of all, they have to have people with different skill sets on the boards, especially large companies. It could be in any field. You have to have the different skill sets, people who would be able to contribute with respect to what's happening in terms of the growth and in terms of the total corporate governance. So I think what they have done is this program, even if it may not be for people who are coming onto the board, but this program, I would say, is so full. What they have done is to, number one, to get. So even say for why did I join this program? I've been the chairman, I've been on the board levels of various, but it's continuous learning. And it's amazing that when I'm going through so many articles, so many people's this thing, that it's a learning process, which I told you myself. And also looking at what are the new changes, what are the corporate governance, this thing which say SEBI requires now. In my time, it may have been different, and it's an ever-changing this thing. So I would say not only the people, but all your good in a large company, the department heads. It's such a structured program, which both of them have started, that this should be inculcated and even gone down, because when you are in a board level, you invite your departmental managers, not for this thing, but even for every person if you have to have a great corporate governance, I think every person must go, especially the senior departmental heads, they may not be on the boards even, to go through this program. I'm going a step further, so that they exactly know what the requirement, and when the chairman and the board is looking at the corporate governance, each one of them within their own fields are able to bring about this change. That is going to be a great insight further. And as I said today, with the skill sets of the independent directors, this thing, I think it's a great thing, which was probably I had not seen it before. And it's an excellent initiative, and I'm wishing them all the best to get and also have these great certified independent directors for a whole lot of, because the whole gambit is changing today. You have to have very strong independent directors, otherwise it doesn't make sense anymore.
Thank you so much. Great. That was fantastic conversing with you, sir. And I'm confident that your insights must have inspired the future leaders and will continue to do so. Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Balooja, for joining us today. We wish you the best for your future endeavors and hope to see great contributions from you in the independent director space.